All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is your favorite dark sorcerer here. And today I kind of want to talk to you about necromancy, just for an example. Now, just to give you the heads up, some of the terms and definitions used here is probably going to piss off a lot of fucking people. Now, personally, I don't give a shit. Okay? It is a historical and mythological terminology. Okay. A lot of people that watch and view this video will probably relate it to more 200 to 300 years worth of, say, slavery, racism, or whatever. These people are ignorant. They don't know their history. They do not know the terminology of the arts. So be forewarned that some of this may piss you off. It may literally bring up let's just say raw emotion and leave it at that. Okay. Emotional outbursts, you know, stuff like that. So, all right. So let's begin, shall we? When we look at necromancy, necromantic practices of, say, the last 1,000 years, okay, we see it's associated with demonolatry. It's the first of the seven forbidden rites, okay? It is the first of the most darkest magics out there. Necromancy, followed by geomancy, aeromancy, pyromancy, hydro. Let me restart that. That's a lot of mancies. I know. So necromancy, geomancy, aeromancy, pyromancy, chiromancy, spatulatomancy, and very good one too. But anyways, we're talking necromantic rites. So here it is. There are two definitions that are always seen. No one really goes into other regions of the world, such as Germany. You know, the ancient Germanic name for cadaver. You know, the lick or glick. Okay. Um, or you can go with the more modern day D&D version, the lick, Lich. But in reality, when you go back into ancient Germanic traditions, the term lick, meaning dead body, is associated with Leiche and or Gleiche. Okay, the glick or the lick, meaning death, corpse, cadaver. Even in Russian, you have another name there too. So, and once it got into Germanic traditions, it wasn't long before it became associated with Russian paganism. So I just want to kind of talk about this for just a minute because of the fact that most people, when they view, how should I say this? When they view necromancy, it's always from the Greek or the Roman tradition. Okay. People today refer to necromancy being associated with corpses, corpse divination, and that is the necromancy practice. But when you get into the Latin variants, you will see the nigromancy. Okay, nigger meaning black. Okay, and this is one of the terms that's going to get a lot of people butthurt. Okay, it's going to piss off a lot of people because they're ignorant and they want to live in modern society and keep that bullshit going instead of learning and evolving. So, um, So, necros, meaning dead body or a dead body. You have mantia, meaning divination, and then you have nigger, meaning black. Okay, so when we get into the Latin nigromancy practices, this is defined as black magic. The definition of black magic, okay, the art of and practice thereof of dark sorcery. So if we go right back into ancient Greek mythology, specifically that of the ancient Greek, you'll see Nicaea. Nicaea is associated with, well, let's just say this is the area in the time frame where it was closely resembling that of shamanism. Shamanic, shamanic, yeah, that's a tongue teaser. Shaman, shamanic practices. The only thing that set necromancy and shamanism apart was the method and usage of the tools that were given. So I want you to kind of learn here, because it wasn't until the last 3 to 500 years that the word Negro or nigger became associated with slavery. Okay, and now it's widely used within forms of racism. When will humanity learn? You know, this is why I don't associate with the world. So, anyways, moving on. Um, Basically, so we've established that nigromancy is the definition of black magic. Okay, utilizing the art of black magic, sorcery. But necromancy, that was the association of corpse divination. This brings us into the Renaissance. It brings us into the Holy Wars. It brings us into the Grimoire system. Okay. And you'll notice down below that I posted some of the sources. Okay. And like I said, those are just some of the sources that I could reference to you, but those are the main popular ones that you can easily get for yourselves and find other sources for you to delve into. But because I'm not going to do all the work for you. So, anyways, when we get into roughly around the 11th century to the 15th century, we're seeing the necromancy kind of just beginning to take fold. But in this area, the late Dark Ages into the Renaissance, we're seeing the Catholic Church movement, Christianity, the persecutions becoming more and more frequent. This is known between the 10th and the 14th century as the witch trials, and anyone who's associating with necromancers would be put to death. Their penalties were quite harsh, okay, quite severe, and history has clearly shown this. Not just these doctrines. So by the time we get into the grimoire traditions of necromancy, we're seeing it more of corpse divination, okay? But people are still holding on to that point of view of spiritual conjuration, okay? And I'll get into this in just a few minutes. But once the witchcraft trials were closed and we're getting into the 13th century to the 16th century, oh, fuck it, let's just go into the 18th century. Okay, I right up to the 18th century. The the Elizabetharian England were becoming more and more frequent with their justice system. So we're seeing where this is going into the art of black magic and necromancy, and this is mostly associated with the Roman Catholic Church. Okay, and right here we're going to see not only the term nigromancy and that of necromancy being applied. But I want to kind of just walk you through something right here because this is something that is very important. We know that the Catholic Church was trying to take over everything. This is the ancient, the Vatican. They were widely imposed through the Roman Empire, but we also see them with the Knights of Templar. Okay, and we see them again roughly between the how should I say the I'm just gonna call it the Arab Stoppel, type empires of European traditions, such as French, the charlatans versus the pagans, you know, England, royalty, first class families compared to everybody else, the hostiles, the rich and slutless that think that they can get away with shit, you know, they can do whatever the fuck they want because they have money and power. This is the age I'm talking about. So we see where it's becoming more alchemy. We're seeing where poisons and symbology is being brought into it through the grimoire systems. It used to be both classified in two different traditions. You have reanimation of corpses, where you're forcing a spirit to go into its own body or a particular body. And then you have the conjuration, where you're manifesting, the spirit itself within, say, any number of locations, say your personal altar room or a ritual chamber designed for coven meetings, or that of, say, a cemetery, a crossroads, or, forest, a condemned building, whatever. There's been a number of different stories of necromancers and ritualistic rites being performed out in the woods at night from the Dark Ages on up. Okay. And a lot of this is it's- fear is the greatest motivator here. And that's very apparent. So when we get into the 15th century, we're now seeing that there's a lot of symbolism being put into play here. We're seeing say for an example, the alchemy symbols for sulfur, the Star of David being implemented, the pentagram being added in here, the goat of Mendes. Okay. We're seeing the hexagram being brought in through hermeatics. Look at the regions of Egypt all the way up into European countries, even Middle Eastern. Middle Eastern traditions have played a huge impact within necromancy. We're seeing where today's occult world is heavily influenced by these designs. The square for or rectangle, the triangle of evocation. We're seeing the inverted cross or the cross being brought into play. A lot of people mistake Satanism for necromantic practices. These are all people trying to corrupt the systems. Okay. So you really gotta delve deep into your own research. In the last couple of days, I've been heavily immersed in research. And if you look at my eyes, they're probably bloodshot, you know, because I've been staring at computer screens, my cell phone screen, cross-referencing and delving into my, books and hitting the library a lot. So there's there's really a lot of information that I'm delving into, tracing necromancy back. And it's very interesting to see. I found one ritual that was actually put forth. And I will tell you this, because of the ingredients, if you're not into herbalism, you probably don't know what a poison can do. Okay. This is why you want to know mathematics. Okay. Mathematics will help you to get that dosage just right. Okay, so we have mandrake, henbane, hemlock, saffron, opium, and wood aloe. Okay, these are six poisonous herbs. They are highly toxic. Now, the ritual shows a master and apprentice, always two. Okay, necromancers normally work alone, anyways, unless they're a part of a organization, like say the Hashishin or the Knights of Templar. Hell, let's go with the Order of the Black Robe. You know, either way, you're gonna see most of the time they're alone. But when a teacher is teaching an apprentice, and the apprentice is learning the methods and the role playing, you're seeing where these symbols are associated, like the circle of empowerment, the circle of protection, utilizing the triangle of evocation in this case. Okay, but in this case, we're looking at the Star of David. Okay, the Jewish star, and this is actually put forth. It prayers facing the four winds. The four cardinal directions. You're putting all these herbs into a censer and lighting them, burning them. And the ritual says that you turn the corpse to the east. And this is where it's associated with Jesus Christ. Okay? Right here, because he was facing the east when he died on the cross. Okay? So here we see with the corpse arrayed facing the east, you anoint the four directions. You light the incense. You light the candles. You call forth the spirits, and you close your eyes and repeat the spirit's name 3 times to bring it to that particular corpse to answer your questions before you banish it. Okay, that's basically that ritual in a nutshell, and it's a very interesting one. But as time goes on from the 16th century forward, we're also seeing languages, alphabets. The Faustbach of the 15th century, associated with the Faustian deal, Mesopotamian traditions, we see where these how should I say this, the symbolic nature is implemented. We see where the pacts and the blood pacts, the offerings and the sacrifices are being made, like the Babylonian Marduk, for an example, or Pazuzu in Mesopotamia. You know, you look at the altars of Anubis in ancient Greek. Yeah, not ancient Greek, but ancient Egyptian. If you're at a graveyard, you want to call him because he's not only the guardian of the grave, but he's also the protector of the graveyard. He's the how should I say this? He is the embalmer. Okay, so therefore, you really want Anubis to be there. So they would call on the god of death. I mean, you look at Voodoo practices. They the zombie myth. They normally get their fresh corpses from graves, and they utilize their tongue. They act as the intermediary, and they call upon the god of the dead. You know, there's a lot of information out there that you can get into and really find the traditions, seeing them. So, like I said, once you get into the grimoire system, You have languages. You have superior beings that you can call on to force a demon or a spirit to manifest and to behave themselves in your presence. But like say the Grand Grimoire or the Constitution of Pope Honorius, the Black Raven, for an example, the which is also known as the Threefold Coercion of Hell by Johanna Faustus. You know, so when you get into later stuff, it changes yet again. Like I said, the Elizabetharian stage of England and Europe. You know, we're seeing where amulets are being implemented, things of protection, and we see this within Middle Eastern Jewish customs. We see this in Egyptian customs as well, because hieroglyphs and talismans, amulets, even in Jewish or Hebrew, even in Islam, even, you see all of this stuff being implemented. You go into European traditions, either Western or Eastern philosophies, and you're seeing where amulets and talismans are being utilized. Okay, this goes from the 17th century forward to present day. But in reality, these things have been used for hundreds of thousands of years. Circles, designs, talismans, totems, everything, your basic phylacteries, basically. They've been utilized for hundreds of thousands of years. It's only the last 300 to 400 years that they've been written down in grimoires, like some of the ones that I just wrote down here below. Okay. Um, some of the more prominent ones. I've spoken on the Black Pellet in past videos, but this is what it looks like today. You can get it on Amazon, eBay, perhaps Abe Books, your local bookstores, and it's called the Black Pellet. But this is actually a part of the Constitution of Pope Honorius as well. It's also associated with the True Grimoire. Okay. Now, the reason I said amulets and hieroglyphics is because of this book. Okay. It's also one of the major things that is utilized in Hermetic traditions, Kabbalah even. So I'm going to read off a couple of things here so you can get a basic understanding of what these things were used for. These things could be put on rings. They could be put on necklaces, jewelry, various different kinds. Let's see here. Even the Oro Robos was put into these things. So, but let's see. All right. For an example, I'm going to show you this. You see what I mean? You have planetary symbols, zodiac symbols. Okay. I've talked about these in the past as well. But then you have this one here. Okay. Let's go into more complex things, like, say, these. Or even this. Okay. This book is basically brought on by the this mythos of the black hen. Think of the well, let's just go with the butterfly ritual from Voodoo practices. Same exact thing. But in that book there, you got different methods of bringing forth money, spirits to help you gather money, knowledge, women, food, your basic, needs throughout, your grimoire traditions. Now, this one here was actually written by an individual that if I remember correctly, he was a photographer, not a photographer, but a journalist. And he went down to Egypt with a platoon that got wiped out, and he was left for dead. But an elderly gentleman came out of a pyramid and dragged him into safety, nourished him, and taught him his ways. And he even taught him how to engrave and to use what symbols for what meaning. So the fact that it talks about God a lot in there, and that type of stuff, kind of like most grimoires, like they would use that, like the grimoire of Abramelin the Mage, Solomantic Keys, the Clavicle of Solomon, um, the True Grimoire, you know, using Christian names. This too uses that. Okay, so be prepared. But what's interesting as well is that even in the Bible, you're going to see necromancy. Okay. And now this is another part that's going to piss off a lot of fucking people. King Saul went to the Witch of Endor because he was in the midst of a 40-year war. Now, at the time, witchcraft and necromancy was condemned through Jewish law. This is Israelites. Israelite law stated that anybody associated with this should be put to death. So he ended up going underneath the cloak of night. I'm talking in disguise. Went at night and went to her and said, "Hey, I need answers." She utilized a form of corpse divination, necromancy. Unfortunately, the spirit that was called basically prophesized his doom. Not just his doom, but his son's doom. And the following day, they were slaughtered. And he had to literally commit ritual suicide, basically, with his own sword, because he was gravely injured. And then he was preceded by King David. Okay. Now, what's interesting is on the topic of human sacrificing and animal sacrificing, we see this as well within the Bible. This has also been associated with necromantic practices, basically the blood sorcery, meaning hemomancy. Okay. Hemomancy is blood sorcery, blood magic. And this goes back 600 years, and it goes back a lot further. So we see where Abraham sacrificed his own son, or was told to sacrifice his own son. Boom, human sacrifice. We go into the book of Leviticus, the book of the law. You have animal sacrifices. The Kippur, was it the Yom Kippur, right, in Hebrew, in Jewish customs. The Sabbatic goat, basically. Rocky Edge, sending one goat down to see how far it would go on these rocky terrains. Goat would be all cut up, bloody, unable to move by the time it gets a certain decimal. And this was offered to Azazel, okay? Associated with the goat of Mendes, okay, the dark god, whatever you want to call it. But in reality, angelology and demonology, Azazel is actually associated with alchemy and seduction, okay? Teaching women to paint their faces, the art of seduction, teaching men how to forge weapons. Okay, you get the gist there. So, in this rite, you have two goats, one blemished and one unblemished. The unblemished one is literally torn apart, the flesh burned in a bonfire, the entrails sitting on an altar, and the blood sitting in a vase. Read about the tabernacle. You'll understand that. That's within you could actually go, I believe, what's her name? Valerie. Trying to think of the woman's name. She literally did an awesome book on just the tabernacle setup alone. But first name was Valerie. I can't think of her last name offhand, so I do apologize for that. Um, so anyways, as we move forward, we see since then the human stoning. Okay, Paul, New Testament. Okay, we see that today. What happened to Saddam Hussein? He was stoned to death by his own people. Gotta love that already, though. I mean, a bullet would be quick and easy, but being stoned to death, whew, that had to suck. But anyways, even in the Gospels, we see necromancy. Jesus Christ, for an example, was a necromancer. Look at how he raised the Centurion's daughter. Okay, she's not dead, just slumbers. Rise and get up. Basically commanding the spirit to rise and for that individual to reanimate and come back to life. Again, we also see this with the rising of Lazarus. Same exact thing. Necromantic rites and rituals. So when we look at the Vatican and we look at the Roman Catholic Church, the reason they condemned necromancy and magic was because it worked. They saw it more as, oh, you're not conjuring a spirit. No, 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 no. You're conjuring a demon that is manipulating you. Okay, that was their view. But it was more for control of the populace, obedience. But like I said, once you get into the more modern day grimoires, you're going to see the doctrine of ritual of high magic from Elvis Levi, who literally does the conjuration aspect and brings forth the spirit through full manifestation. That book there literally puts out puts out a very detailed right his experience in London. Okay, again, London, a place that was heavily how should I say this, was heavily prejudiced against black magic and sorcery, but yet the secret organization brought this one man in, gave him a right. He performed that right, and it scared him so shitless that he ran back to Hermetics, never to practice that type of magic again. Goes to show you, though, only few have the balls. Francis Barrett, his book The Magus, shows where the witch, the necromancer, the warlock, the bokor, or whatever you want to call the practitioner, is simonious with devils and demons, angels even. And he even puts forth, how should I say these? I'm going to call them components, glyphs, diagrams even of you have the angel that controls the demon. The demon is from what type of dimension, and then you have the symbolatry, the language, the witch, and such, all the way down. So it's like showing a chain of command from superior to inferior to servant. Okay, but he does like 12 different diagrams in that book, but it's all misleading. Misleading. Through my own research into necromancy, I have found connections between the Tibetan Book of the Dead and the Egyptian Book of the Dead, medical traditions such as autopsies, organ removal, mummification, and various other aspects of how to resuscitate through reanimation, going as far back as the 16th century. And that's just in the medical field. Okay. I've actually done videos in the past. I want to say it was like a year ago, maybe two. I did a series on necromancy, and I gave all kinds of sources, and I think it was like 4 or 5 videos that I did on that alone. But because it's associating with spirits, a lot of people misinterpret it as being a part of Satanism. Necromancy can be associated with Satanism just as much as it can be associated with Wiccan and pagan practices of conjuration of spirits, associating with spirits and stuff. But when it gets down to it, there are two different paths, two different workings. This book here, Necromancy, The Forbidden Art by Lucien Rofocale, you align this book with Christian Day's The Witch's Book of the Dead, and you're going to see a lot of commonalities. But you're also going to see two different perceptions. Christian Day did a more historical and mythological background on necromancy and death. I think his was more associated with pagan and Voodoo traditions of Creole. Okay, the more Louisiana aspect. But his gnosis was sound within his own research because a lot of what I found did match up with what he wrote. And again, same thing with this author here. So, like I said, there's at least 20, 30 books that I could offer you, but I only put a small handful down below because I want to see where you go. I want to see where your journey takes you. Okay. And I would also look at the 15th century manual for necromancers by Richard Keffer as well. That one has a lot of information on experiments. But you look at people like Edward Arthur Waite, Agrippa, Remy, Nicholas Remy's book, you're going to see it incorporated with Christian dogma. And a lot of people, sadly, today associate with that. I can tell you that I've traced necromancy all the way back to the 6th century AD. What was it, AD? No, it was BC. It was before Christ. And I can tell you that the things that I found blow my mind. But you're the only one who can trace it back yourself. I would recommend looking into secret societies, medical practices. I would recommend getting into the 36 different Mancies. I would recommend getting into the different grimoire traditions. Don't stick to one region of the world. Go into them all. Okay. Um, Spiritual beings come in different forms, from spirits, reincarnated spirits, through blood sorcery. I mean, the Blood Sorcery Bible, Volume 1 and 2 by Sorceress Cagliostro, the Necromancer. Very good book. I loved her work. She gives medical definitions, she gives historical accounts, she gives actual practice of curses and what to use. Not just spirits that you can conjure and do, but also alchemical experiments with blood, which was awesome to say the least. I really enjoyed her work, and I'm looking forward to buying more books by her. I own 3 of them so far, but kind of cutting back on book buying because of lack of space. Yeah, I'm one of those kind of practitioners. I love to research. I love to get new material and I love to delve into it. So I tend to go down to the library a lot and order like 5, 6 books at a time and read them in a week. A chapter from one book, a chapter from another book, and so forth. And by the 7 days, it's like done. So, but yeah, there's a lot of sources out there that you can go into. One of the things that I posted on my TikTok, um, my Instagram page, and Timber page was books on necromancy that you would probably be paying roughly about $900, if not more, today for. But I have been putting a lot of things out there on necromancy lately. Two of which, I know a lot of people really hate Bulg right now, but Necromancy Sorcery by Dante Abiel and Connor the Necromancer, Kendall, Connor Kendall. Those two books I found kind of interesting, so I ended up buying them. I find them common, interlinked. A lot of the same writing, but same tools, but they don't really go into anything of the past. It's more modern day practice. But the tools that they use, like powders, oleums, and how should I say this, tonics, have been used for hundreds of thousands of years. The tools such as skulls and athames and stuff like that go back hundreds of thousands of years. Daggers have been around since the Dark Ages. You know, spears and swords have been used for a very long time. So, I mean, these things are nothing new. It's just your perception of what you're being led to believe. So, this is why I highly recommend that whatever you preach, you always back it up with multiple sources. More so, always make yourself available to the public because whatever you put out, and I just want to say this real fast. This is why so many individuals today are getting tired of social media because social media is cracking down on the left hand path groups, such as on Facebook. And now they're renaming Facebook. It's like you're still the same piece of shit. You're still the same idiotic group that's doing all this stuff. No matter what name you have, you're gonna stay the same. It's all about this, and to hell with everybody else. But one thing you'll notice is they're not attacking Christian groups. No, they're attacking satanic groups and Wiccan and pagan groups. Ironic, isn't it? And even here on YouTube, I've had somebody report one video, just one video by me. Okay. And it didn't go anywhere because YouTube found, when I challenged it, YouTube came back and go, oh, by the way, we found nothing wrong here. Facebook does the exact same thing. You got to remember that you're not dealing with an actual person up front. You're dealing with a computer system, and everything today is going electronic. So, and more automatic. How should I say this? Automative. You know, automative, autom whatever you want to call it. It's just dealing with technology these days. It's hands off, so they can deal with less employees. Okay, it's more about control. So when you look at this is another form of enslavement by the JCI, the Judo-Christian institutions, who are trying to crack down on the knowledge being put out. You look at the Catholic Church, either here in the US or worldwide, Eastern, Western, over the last 50 years, they've literally confessed that they have put out more exorcists within their archdiocese over the last 50 years, 40 to 50 years, because of the uprise in black magic, sorcery, and demonology. Again, do your fucking homework, people, okay? Oh, man. Do your homework because you will learn the truth. You can be told something, but in reality, it will not sink in unless you do the work yourself, okay? But you're going to see the difference between those who claim to be and those who truly are practitioners. The difference, because those who truly are not just putting videos out with rituals that they're doing, but they're also backing it up with actual facts. They're giving you the sources to where they're studying and practicing, where they're getting the material. They're not just going, well, this is my ascended, gnosis. Here you go. Weep it and weep, reap it and weep type thing. No. Is $300 for a freaking book? No. I mean, it is your time. It's up to you on what you want to do, but that's it. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, you are alone, and it's true. That's why being a necromancer, you are alone. You are a solitary practitioner because people don't want to associate with you. Personally, I have no, how should I say this? I don't care if people associate with me. I enjoy the solitude. I enjoy the quiet. Gives me time to focus on my family. It gives me time to focus on my studies and my practices and what needs to be done. Deals, pacts, rituals, offerings, sacrifices. This is all part of spirituality. But if you want to learn the truth, you're going to do the work yourself. All right? RSCL, welcome to the channel, and I want to thank you for being on here and participating with me today. I have been reading your comments, just to let you know. Oops, don't want to do that. Ah, Germany. Good. That's a good region. Full of rich gnosis of spiritual beings like the dwarfs. For an example, the elven and the Norse gods. Even Agrippa, yep. Even Agrippa was from that region, if I remember correctly. So, I mean, even you go as far back as Johanna Faustus. He was Germanic. A lot of people didn't realize that. He wrote the book the Faustbach, and that was 15th century. And I believe the last time it was printed was early 16th century until modern day. And that's because the library and museums have been releasing it. But they're only getting a small portion of it because the Vatican has the main books in their lock and seal of their archives, their personal library. And they are releasing it little by little, just not a lot. So keep that in mind as well. All right. Have a good day. And I got to go do some chores and go pick up my son. So from his grandmother's. He spent last night with his grandmother and grandfather. He wanted to go with them last night to put up decorations for All Saints Day, you know, All Hallows Eve, Samhain, the Day of the Dead. So yeah, you are welcome, my friend. So yeah, I told him. I said, you have your pumpkin out there. You can cut it up with Aya, or you can wait for Daddy. Either way, it's up to him. So, but anyways, have a good day, and until next time.